In a small, sunlit classroom where every pencil scratch sounded like a whispered warning, Miss Carter rolled with a stern gaze and an unyielding hand. The room was so silent you could almost hear the unspoken rules that made each heartbeat quicken in fear. Every child felt the weight of her disapproval, especially those who didn't mirror her own ways. Yet, beneath that rigid order, a subtle current of bias pulsed, hinting at secrets waiting to burst forth. Could this carefully kept calm be hiding a storm? Jaden, a lively 10-year-old with eyes that sparkled like morning dew and a smile as wide as a clear blue sky, had just arrived at Riverbend Elementary, a school set in a small Texas town where most faces were unfamiliar. Brimming with hope and excitement to forge new friendships, he stepped into the classroom with a lightness in his step. But almost instantly, he sensed a chill in the air, a feeling that made him wonder, am I the odd one out? The curious glances and hushed tones around him promised that something wasn't quite right. What secret did this new beginning hold? No sooner had he crossed the threshold than Ms. Carter's eyes narrowed as if she were sizing him up. Without a trace of welcome, she ordered him to take a seat at the very back of the room. His arrival stirred a ripple of whispers among his new classmates, each glance a mixture of pity and fear. No one dared speak up against her. She had an uncanny way of making even the bravest feel invisible. Was this the beginning of an unfair fate? From that moment on, the little acts of dismissal snowballed into relentless mockery. When Jaden raised his hand to ask a question, it was as if his voice vanished into thin air. Whenever he spoke, Ms. Carter's eyes rolled in exasperation, and even his correct answers were defaced with scrawled errors. Every gesture of his was met with a silent, piercing judgment that left him feeling smaller with each passing day. How long could one endure such unkindness? During one ordinary math lesson, Jaden's confidence soared as he answered a problem correctly, a subject he had always excelled in. But instead of praise, a sharp, cold retort met him. Did I ask for back talk? Ms. Carter's voice sliced through the room like a sudden gust, plunging the class into a tense silence. In that split second, Jaden's heart pounded fiercely as he clenched his fists under his desk, swallowing his protest as if it were bitter medicine. Could a single moment change everything? Day by day, the cruelty deepened. If Jaden finished his work too early, accusations of cheating would swirl around him. A minor mistake was magnified into a spectacle for everyone to see. The relentless barrage of unjust remarks and public humiliation weighed on him like a heavy shroud. Finally, when he gathered the courage to hint that the treatment wasn't right, Ms. Carter's only response was to send him off to the principal's office, unaware of the dramatic twist that lay ahead. Would speaking out bring the justice he longed for? In the chilly confines of the principal's office, Jaden sat with his head bowed, feeling as if the room itself echoed his despair. Soon, the door creaked open and Mr. Johnson, the principal known for his quiet strength and gentle kindness, entered and sat down across from him. "What happened, son?" he asked softly, his tone laced with concern. After a long, hesitant pause, Jaden managed to say, "Ms. Carter doesn't like me. She treats me differently." His voice trembled as he recounted the ignored questions, the unjust corrections, and the daily humiliation that had drained his spirit. Would this revelation spark a change no one expected? Back in the classroom, Ms. Carter sat with a self-satisfied smirk, convinced she had firmly established her authority. Her moment of pride was abruptly shattered when the classroom door burst open and Mr. Johnson strode in, his presence filling every corner with an unspoken promise of accountability. "Ms. Carter, I need a word with you now," he declared. The room held its breath as the weight of his words promised consequences that none could foresee. What would happen when truth collided with authority? In the quiet hallway, Mr. Johnson's eyes burned with determination as he fixed Ms. Carter with a look that silenced even the loudest doubts. "Tell me, Ms. Carter," he began slowly, "how long have you been treating my son this way?" His question hung heavily in the air, forcing her to falter. I didn't know he was your son," she stammered, her face draining of color as her carefully constructed facade crumbled. "So you admit to treating him differently?" Mr. Johnson pressed on, his voice growing firmer. "My son is bright, yet you single him out. If this is your way with him, what about the others?" Overwhelmed, she could only mutter that it was a misunderstanding. But Mr. Johnson's reply was clear and unwavering. "No, Ms. Carter. It's plain racism, and it stops today." Could one man's resolve overturn a lifetime of cruelty? The next morning, the corridors of Riverbend Elementary buzzed with hushed conversations as news of a major change swept through the school. Standing before her class, Ms. Carter appeared visibly shaken while Mr. Johnson entered with a clear, commanding presence. "Good morning, class," he announced. "I have an important update." The room fell silent as he continued, "Ms. Carter will no longer be teaching here." Shock, relief, and disbelief rippled through the students as gasps filled the air. Ms. Carter's attempts to protest were swiftly silenced by Mr. Johnson's firm words, "This school does not have space for discrimination. We hold each other to a higher standard, and you have not met it." Even those who once cheered her echoed only silence as Mr. Johnson gave a small, reassuring nod to Jaden before leaving. Was this the long-awaited turning point? That very day, for the first time since his arrival, Jaden's smile broke free from the shadows of fear. As he strolled through the now welcoming halls, those who had once looked away began to greet him with genuine warmth. A few even approached him to apologize for their silence, and though his heart still ached for the lost time, he chose forgiveness over bitterness. At lunch, while sitting with a new group of friends, a kind girl named Emily leaned in and whispered, "You're really brave, Jaden." With a soft laugh, he replied, "I just wanted to be treated fairly." And in that moment, Riverbend Elementary transformed into a place where every child could feel safe and seen, a place where fairness was no longer just a word, but a promise for the future. Could this be the start of a brighter tomorrow?